Hello my friends and welcome back to the rabbit hole. Today's video is going to be my unpopular opinions about makeup as I apply these products. I think this is kind of an older tag idea, so I guess some people will probably be like, oh Alice, you're a little late to the party there. Counter argument, I don't go to parties anymore and you can't be late to things you don't go to. Let us kick off today's dinner party with the Sahara palette by Alter Ego. So this is a new palette from the brand. They did send this over to me. Thank you, Alter Ego. And it is a dupe for the Natasha Denona Biba palette. Which means to me, we have the prime opportunity for me to share my thoughts on dupes in this unpopular opinions video. I feel like some people have rather strong feelings when it comes to dupes. Some people think that it's really stealing the artistry of another brand. I just don't think it's a big deal. But I didn't always think this way. There was actually kind of a particular moment that stands out in my memory where I kind of just realized, oh, this is absolutely no big deal. So do you guys remember Too Faced chocolate bars were quite the success? Makeup Revolution came out with their own, and the design was quite similar, although they added that dripping appearance. Well, the moment that really made me change my mind about even packaging was when Too Faced had their rebuttal by coming out with the chocolate gold palette, which featured the dupes design on their palette. Maybe it's just me, but I thought that was absolutely hilarious. And it was kind of good PR for both brands because on one hand you had, Too Faced making this statement that makes it clear that they don't care, but they're going to steal your design right back. And then Makeup Revolution, like, so what? It just became this big so what? It's just funny. And I think one of the biggest concerns when people express the whole hating dupes mentality, I think that they think that people are going to opt for these more affordable dupes instead of buying the real thing, and I don't honestly think there's crossover. I just don't. This palette in itself is a dupe for, what, $130 palette, and it's $16. You are either gonna buy a $130 palette, or you can't, or you literally can't. It starts to feel a little exclusionary for me, like, well, you can either afford this $130 palette and follow all of the tutorials that these beauty gurus have made, or you're out of the club. For me personally, I don't actually have any interest in buying Natasha Denona palettes anymore. I own the Star palette, and I'm good. I don't think it's a bad formula, I just think it's too expensive. Yes, it's a lot of product, I just think it's too expensive. But I've had this palette now for 2 weeks, and I have definitely had a lot of fun following the tutorials, looking up Biba eyeshadow palette looks and replicating those. I'm not gonna lie, I've really had a lot of fun doing that. You guys want to know what it reminds me of? When I was in college, I've told you guys, I do come from a poor background, so when I was in college, I was still poor, made it all the way to a master's level without taking out one student loan ever. So this means that I would always go to my professors and say, hey, so I know we can buy the textbook and it's $300. I was wondering if you don't mind if I buy the last version because I found it for $4 on Amazon. True story, I never had a professor tell me no. Sometimes an older version didn't exist, but I never had a professor say, oh yeah, you're out of the club, sorry, you gotta pay the $300. However, every time the professor would be like, okay class, open your books to chapter number 2, I'd, struggle for a bit. Wait, what's going on? Oh, Alice, for you, chapter 13. Honestly, amazing that it was $296 more for rearranged chapters. That's totally what this reminds me of because it's not the same layout. It is the same colors, it's not the same layout, it's not the same packaging. So when I watch these tutorials, I kind of got to figure out, okay, this color is like that one, but I can still follow it. I don't feel excluded from the $130 palette buying club. So yeah, I guess realistically, I just like including people rather than excluding people. And I think it's a bit of a danger when people attack dupes too much. You have to kind of step back and ask, okay, but realistically, can every person afford a $130 palette? I'll go ahead and give you guys a little mini review of this since I haven't yet talked about it in another video. So this, if you have not tried the brand Alter Ego, it's a lot like Bad Habit. I'm trying to think of any other formulas this might remind me of. It's very unique. The shimmers are very intense. The mattes are more on the powdery side. They are definitely more subtle mattes because they kind of do the blending away thing. Now, I think it's possible for you to like this a lot more than I do because I like intense makeup looks. If you like your mattes to blend out and look more soft, you might like the formula. Whereas for me, the mattes are, they work, but they're not my absolute favorite formula. The shimmers, however, they are so pretty. They're so pretty. Now, go figure that because this palette is so many more mattes than shimmers, it's actually my least favorite palette that Alter Ego has done, even though I still enjoy the fact that I got to follow all the Biba tutorials. I'm still gonna tell you, honestly, my favorite is the Alter Ego dupe for the gold palette. Ugh. It is stunning. Look at all the shimmers in there. It's a gorgeous palette. And then my second favorite is the Daydream palette. This is, of course, a Huda Beauty dupe. But anyway, if you're interested in the brand, they gave me a code. It is not an affiliate code. I do not make any money off of it, but it saves you 10%. I believe it's Alice10. I'll put it below. 10% off. This makes these $14.40 for this one. That's a hard price to beat. That's all I'm saying. All right, moving on to primer. My unpopular opinion with primer is that I love it so much, which is kind of hilarious, but every time I do a primer video, there's at least one person who jumps in and says, oh, I think primer is a scam. It's funny though, I feel like there are a couple of other products that people often cite as scams, face mists and eye creams. But you know, I really think it's just all about finding what genuinely works for you because, for example, I don't wear a lot of concealer. There are plenty of days where I do not wear any under-eye concealer. Now, does that mean under-eye concealer is a scam? I'm pretty sure a lot of people would say absolutely no. Or powder. I honestly don't even wear a lot of powder, but I think a lot of people would not give up powder. So it's almost like I'm just defining what it's like to have dry skin versus oily skin. And just so you know, I use two primers. So the Cover FX Blurring Primer is what I use on my nose and on my pores. I push it into my pores so that they are less visible. And this is a true story. I don't know if I've ever shared this. So a couple years ago when I started having problems with my foundation sticking to my nose, somebody suggested to use an eye primer, like Urban Decay Primer Potion, on your nose to make the foundation stick better. I realized one day when I was in Sephora that this felt exactly like using the Urban Decay. And then on my forehead and neck, I use a more moisturizing type of primer. So the Juno & Co. Moonshine Miracle Cream has been absolutely incredible. What is this, the third time I've talked about this in 2 weeks? They did send this over, but it also makes perfect sense that I would fall in love with it. It's high in avocado oil, has hyaluronic acid as well, which is kind of a necessary ingredient for my forehead. I got a little bit of lines there, a little bit. It's not bad. It's not terrible, but any bit of plumping is going to make them less apparent, so I love using hyaluronic acid products on my forehead. Let's use this NYX Born to Glow foundation, which has never made an appearance on this channel, ever. I actually bought this literally on the day that it was released. I thought I was absolutely gonna love it. $10 foundation. A lot of people are calling this a dupe for the Anastasia Luminous foundation. But funny story, I've realized I don't need to buy the Anastasia foundation because I don't wear this finish. Contrary to what I just said about having dry skin and fitting dry skin stereotypes, I really don't like light, medium coverage, luminous finish foundations. My pocketbook is grateful because we sure have had a lot of those this year. But again, it's one of those things that kind of also does make sense. You know, I've been taking much better care of my skin. I've been getting my skincare routine down so that I'm not breaking out anywhere near as much as I used to. So I just wear a tint if I gotta go work at the gym. And if I'm gonna be on a stage, then I'm gonna wear my more full coverage foundations. I can see how this foundation would be amazing if you work in an office type of setting or just lead a much more normal life than I do. So I think my point here, if I understand my own self, is that I'm saying personal preference ends up playing an absolutely gigantic role. Is that the point? Also, confession, I feel like NYX's products, for some reason, never quite match me correctly. It's a little orange, isn't it? It's a little bit. I'm gonna set my makeup with the Seal the Deal Loose Setting Powder, which is basically all I've been wearing since I got it, from Lawless. This is a clean makeup product, and I gotta admit, my unpopular opinion here is I actually am a fan of the clean makeup movement. Here's the deal. I feel like the clean makeup movement is something that I kind of relate to in quite a few ways. I swear I'm going to make a video on this someday. I really do relate to them in certain aspects. For example, they are very focused on the ingredients a product contains. So am I. I absolutely believe that the more you understand ingredients, the more you'll be able to predict how a product performs. It's actually really interesting. Since I've come to understand ingredients, I can now flip a product over, look at the first couple of ingredients and kind of have an idea of what its texture is going to be like, how it's going to be on my skin. And I feel like I do relate to the clean beauty movement in this aspect. We can have conversations about what certain ingredients do, but there is one giant thing separating me from the clean makeup communities. The problem that I have with this idea is that I think sometimes it can get a little bit dangerous. I think sometimes we've studied an ingredient enough that we now have a pros and cons list, and people end up focusing on the cons list and instead replacing that entire ingredient with an ingredient that just hasn't been studied as much. See, I don't think that's a good approach. I like data, lots of it. Fine if some of it says, well, you may want to worry about this or this, but I'd rather have tons of data than not enough. And to give you a specific example and possibly lose a couple of subscribers in the process, I'm actually not opposed to parabens. I've read a lot of research on them because there is a lot of research. Whereas some of the newer generations of preservatives, we just don't know anything about them. We don't have any data. And I know some clean brands kind of get around this by barely using preservatives. They all have to have preservatives to sell a product in the United States that contains water. But then you run into this issue of the product goes bad faster. So even when I do buy clean makeup brands, I always keep them in my fridge. That's an extra level of commitment, but I guess it's worth it for me. I'm going to use the Roxy Roxxsaurus Contour and Highlight palette. I am a giant fan of Makeup Revolution's contour palettes. I think they are incredible because they are a little more powdery. So I genuinely regret spending a lot of money in this category because here's the thing, when you buy a contour palette, you are going to find one shade works for you. In this palette, it's this shade right here. You're barely going to use the other colors. I think I swatched them. So why on earth would you spend $40+ on contour palettes? And the thing is, I sit here saying this knowing that I did it multiple times. $10 is the right price to spend on a contour palette, in my opinion. All right, I'm ready for what will probably be the most unpopular opinion in this entire video. I'm gonna do brows and use the Fenty Beauty MVP Brow. I don't like this at all. I bought this because it seemed like an interesting idea. You've got a really different brush on one side, if I can open it. And it is a lot less, well, not a lot less, it's a couple dollars less than Precisely My Brow Wiz. But you may have noticed that I'm doing my brows last. That's because I have a lot of problems getting this to stick on my skin. You basically have to have makeup down for it to stick at all. See, it's not sticking over here, it's just taking my foundation off. It's so hard of a texture. Which makes it really, really impractical for me because typically if I'm reaching for a brow pencil, it's because I'm not wearing a lot of makeup. I didn't put on a ton of foundation. I feel like I have to beat my eyebrow to get any of this to show up. And I hate to say anything bad about the Fenty brand because I'm honestly terrified of Fenty stans. I have a theory on it. I think that people associate the Fenty products too much with Rihanna as a person. Meaning that if you are to say you don't love a Fenty product, then oh my gosh, you don't like Rihanna. This is the exact same reason I didn't buy anything from Lady Gaga's brand, even though I was so excited about it when it first released. Then I went and looked at the products and I was like, oh, these are really underwhelming, but I don't want anyone to get mad at me for reviewing them and saying that. So instead, I have no idea. Maybe they're great. I don't know. I think it's really interesting because I feel like we don't actually have that mindset with any other brands. You can pretty much critique other brands and nobody gets upset about it. People are like, well, it's just the product, it's not the whole brand. But yeah, for some reason, maybe it's the musical connection though, because that's really the only thing I see in common with those two musical artists. They're both pop stars, and they both, I think, really impacted people's lives. I mean, how many of you have an absolute favorite Rihanna song? I sure do. Umbrella. Umbrella is mine. Even in saying that, there are some things I really like about this brow product. It has a great shade range. Of course it does. Fenty's very good at that. They go very light. If you have very light brows, you probably have a match in the Fenty brand. And I also have a suspicion that if you have thicker brows, you might like this a lot more than I do, because I just need so much product that I kind of need a more creamy brow pencil. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it today. I don't think I've yet 100% relied on this pencil to give me brows. I think I've tried and given up actually every single time. Ooh, dang. I gotta resort to some Precisely My Brow. Give me a second. I bought an old product, which is so unpopular for YouTube, so unpopular. This is the Tony Moly Moschino, right? Chic Stay Tint Glossy in 01. This was $8 on the Yes Style website, and I was like, that's adorable packaging. Oh wait, I had an unpopular opinion with my lashes, but it's actually a super popular, unpopular opinion, just you don't need lashes every day. Honestly, this is a really interesting product. I feel like it is very K-beauty. It is a standard tint. It does look a little more glossy on the lips, but it kind of dries a little. That's the feeling you get, but it's not transfer proof at all. I think the word I'm looking for is lip stain, actually. It's definitely more of a stain. You might want to wear it with a lip liner because it's not the most precise lip color, but I also kind of like that it's really casual and easy to wear. It will fade through the day, but it will fade evenly. So that's it. That's my unpopular opinions for today's video. Please feel free to drop yours in the comments below. I feel like everybody kind of likes this topic, even if it's a bit of a like/hate, love-hate topic. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.